Let's do this. Hey, we're live, everyone. And Darren's with us too. Hey, Darren.
Hi there.
So
Now I've got my
the
bandwidth situation sorted out. That's good.
bandwidth situation sorted out. Uh, it's funny when you have when I have the countdown, the countdown's going and the music's going. My bandwidth statistics on this end are like, they're all over the place. I guess it's the music and our images and everything going out there is wreaking havoc with my non-fiber bandwidth that I've got here. But
Yes.
there you go.
I have a tenuous link to the internet as well.
So what we are, let's see here. Let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. Okay, there. I'm a little bit better there. Let's check your positioning. you're off. I can't get you on center. Ah, there we go. Well, now you're off center the other way. Well, we'll just have to deal. We'll just have to deal with it.
Cool.
So I don't know if Eric is joining us. I'm not sure. Oh, hey, look at that. Now you're on center.
Yeah, I moved my computer the
Um,
old-fashioned way.
I have a new camera. I have a new camera. Right now, I've been very happy, by the way, with the MacBook Pro camera. It does a good job. Fantastic camera on this what is this one? M3 MacBook Pro. Lovely
Oh, that's
camera.
very fancy.
Oh, super fancy. Totally outdated. That's the thing about being a Mac user these days is that buy the fanciest, most chuffed up computer you can get, and you'll be out of date the next year. You're welcome, says Apple,
Or the next week.
or the next week. Anyway, so I got a new camera here. I got a new one of
Cool.
the. So it was on this amazing sale, and I took advantage of it. I don't have it set up yet, though. Need or want to get a little tripod so it sits just above my laptop here. Um, and I do have a put that over there. I do have a stand my laptop is on. So I'm not using the laptop's keyboard. I'm not using the laptop's trackpad. I'm using a full size Apple keyboard and a Magic Mouse. So that's how I do
Absolutely.
that.
Same here. I have a full-size Apple keyboard with
Wireless.
the wireless, of course,
Yeah.
with the fancy touch ID as well.
Mm. Well, you are fancy pants.
Well, not that fancy because my computer is an M1 and you have an M3, so that's I'm very out of date. No, the M4 is the thing.
We are glad to have you with us too, Brian. This is going to be kind of the new normal, by the way. Brian mentioned glad to be on a Saturday when he's not bouncing in and out of meetings. And, it wasn't as much of an issue for you, I don't think. You were getting home,
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah, it's okay for me. Yeah,
it was
yeah,
your evening, right? Um,
that's right.
Eric and I both own small businesses, and while we try our hardest to not schedule anything on the Fridays that we were to record, things come up. And uh, you can only ignore clients so long before they start to get a little upset with you. So, with that in mind, and with Eric's schedule in mind, we thought, why don't we give Saturdays
Yeah,
a
let's give
try?
Saturdays a go. Yeah.
And so now, instead of this is important for folks who watch the live stream, not for who listen to the audio show, but for folks who watch the live stream, rather than the second and fourth Friday, we are now the second and fourth Saturday, at least
Indeed.
for now,
For the moment.
for the moment,
Yes.
for the moment. Um,
At
I
least I
was
got the
on.
time right this time as well. So,
E-
yeah, our clocks change tomorrow in the UK,
They do, yes. So you'll
just
be
to make
six
things
hours
even
ahead
more
again.
confusing.
Yeah. Yes, you were 6 hours ahead, and then you went to five, and now tomorrow you'll be back to six again, I believe. Right? You
Yeah, there's some logic there somewhere.
you jump ahead. You
It
jump
seems
ahead
the
tomorrow.
planet is kind of random.
Considering the rotational speed of the planet hasn't changed in the last few weeks, I don't know why we can't just
Well,
coordinate
not
all
in
this
2 weeks.
stuff.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh my. Well, I have not heard one way or the other if Eric's going to join us, so we can just get started. Uh,
Yeah,
I
cool.
didn't I didn't share with you, Darren, the details. Oh, all right. I gotta add Brian's other comment here. So Brian's an educator. Thank you, Brian, by the
Ah,
way. But Brian's an
yes.
educator, And it turns out he's also at school 1 to 2 Saturdays a month. So uh, maybe he can join us. Maybe he can't. We'll see.
uh,
Brian, by the way, Macstock is coming up this July 11th, 12th, and 13th. If you're watching this live right now, today is the last day of the early bird sale for the weekend pass for Macstock. And tomorrow it goes to regular price. So some of the folks that are currently signed up and on the schedule for Macstock Weekend is Allison Sheridan and Brett Terpstra and Brian Flanagan Arthurs, who is in our chat room right now. So excited to
Excellent.
have. Oh, and Kirsten Sia is also on the thing. Kirsten's a fantastic presenter as well. So yeah, that's who's lined up. Some of the others who are coming or will be in the lineup pretty soon include Dave Ginsburg and Marty Gensius and Chuck Joyner and let's see. Oh, Mike Schmitz. Mike Schmitz is going to be doing a workshop, I believe. He's got to get
Cool.
back to me on that. And a few others, a whole bunch of others. But it's 3 days. It's 3 days. And last year we had four workshops, four 90-minute workshops. This year, right at the moment, and this could change, of course, but right at the moment, we're going to have five 90-minute workshops and
Wow.
um, up to 12 regular sessions. Our regular sessions are 45 minutes, and then we've got the five 90-minute and 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
So
It's
yeah,
like
if you're
going back to
watching,
school,
if you're well, no, yes, you in a
but
way,
more
right?
fun.
It is a heck of a lot more fun. It is it is kind of at its heart an educational conference, but it's also a way to get the community together in
Yeah,
person
meet and
and
greet. Yeah, yeah.
meet and greet and enjoy each other's company and learn off of each other in addition to learning off of those who are presenting. And the awesome thing about Macstock and what I try to do and what I try to encourage the speakers to do is to not set themselves off from everybody in attendance. And by the way, nobody has ever done that. Don't set yourself off from those in attendance. Be part of those in attendance, and that's
Mm,
one of the things that I love
absolutely.
about it. Is every year, people, whether you're a presenter or you're an attendee, you are there with everyone else to learn and enjoy the company of others and take part in that hallway track, which is so very important to the weekend. But yeah, it's a good
Uh,
time. It's a good time.
and then you see one of those tips and you think, why on earth didn't I know that? I've been doing this for 20 years and somebody showed me something I've never seen before.
Never like yes, like last episode.
Like
I
last
mean,
episode,
how,
exactly.
how
Yeah.
many how many years? In 1984, right? The Mac was released. How many years has that feature been part of the Finder? And I had no idea it
No
was
idea.
there. And then it was just a couple months ago I learned that you can create a template out of any old file by using Stationery Pad under Get Info.
Yeah.
Who knew? Who knew? One of my favorite tips now.
Mind you, it's Apple's fault though, isn't it? Because they named it Stationery Pad, so nobody knew what on earth it was.
Make a template. Make a template.
That's it. Call it Make a Template.
Topic for future show, by the way. It was brought to my attention today. I think it was today. That other people love their Macs, and this is kind of the whole driving force behind for Mac Guys Only. It's always been right. That it's not for the super techie people. It's for everyone. And
Mm,
Macstock
yeah,
is the same. Macstock being an now long offshoot of for Mac Guys Only. It's always kind of been the case where it's designed for everyone, whether you're techie or not techie. You should be able to walk away from this with
absolutely.
a little bit of extra knowledge and learning and all that. Well, anyway, it
Yeah.
was brought to my attention today, I believe it was, I think the exact quote was, "Not everybody is as techy as you,"
Mm.
and sometimes learning or discovering the new features of what the Mac can do for us are are hidden from us. In other words, we don't know where to look to find these features.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the old discovery issue, isn't it?
the
Yeah.
old discoverability issue, and this in particular came up because of a Microsoft Office subscription.
Uh,
Do they renew their subscription for software that they are very, very familiar with, PowerPoint and Excel in particular, or do they forego the subscription and start using Numbers and Keynote and LibreOffice and other
mhm.
analogs for Microsoft Office
Yeah.
instead? And the brief answer is, well, if you need to share a document, because sharing the documents was a concern. How do I create a presentation in Keynote and then share it with those who are not Mac users? And we know you export it. You export it as a PowerPoint, or you export it as a PDF, or you export
Mm,
it in
yeah.
some way that someone on the other platform can see the content that you've created. Um, but that discoverability isn't there, and they weren't aware of it. And quite frankly, they didn't really feel like wanting to go out and try to find these steps when it's not terribly obvious how to do it. And that was a
Well, that's where
big.
the community comes in to help, isn't it? Yeah.
That's where the community comes in to help. So this, even though we do kind of dance around this topic from time to time, very frequently, that may very well be a great topic for a future episode. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Uh,
helping to
migrating,
improve the
software migrating. Yeah.
yeah, helping to improve the discoverability of features that are there in the Mac and ready for everyone to take advantage of, even when you don't necessarily know where to go look. Um, Brian raised a good point, and then we'll get to the show, Darren. He raised a good point. He said that it can lend itself to how the brain is wired. In fact, maybe we'll even bring Brian on to discuss this if he's up for it.
Oh, actually, yeah,
Um,
yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, yeah.
Especially being an educator, he certainly has a little insight, I think, into how the human brain is wired, especially that of his students. Um, but as he mentioned, it craves habits, it craves order, and when you throw chaos into the mix,
It can all get too much, can't it?
it
Yeah,
can get to be too much. Yeah. So that, as he said, it's hard to change the way that we use tech, to change software when this is just how you've been doing it for 20 years. So great topic, and yeah,
yeah.
maybe Brian will join us for it. He's been on before.
Sounds
It'll be
good.
fun. Yeah,
Oh, excellent, excellent.
yeah. Let's see. So, topic for the episode. Let's get to that. Um, this stems from, as I explained in the email to you, Darren. This stems from a couple listener questions, and actually, it's kind of what we were just talking about. A couple listener questions, in particular, migrating from one cloud service to another, and the difficulties or the um, not knowing where to begin, not knowing the best way to do it, not knowing how to get your contacts from one service into another, and vice versa. So I thought that might be a good topic for an episode. And
Cool.
it's actually three questions. Two of them pretty much the same. Uh,
Or related. Yeah, yeah.
they're related, and then I did that with a little British accent there. Thank you.
Oh,
Uh,
well done.
they're related. They're related, Darren.
They're
Yes,
related, indeed.
yes, indeed, indeed. Um, hang around with you too much, and this is what happens.
I
I tell
know
you,
it rubs off. Yeah,
it
that's it.
rubs off. Well, you know. Um,
uh,
and then the other one was the nifty tools that are built into the Mac to help with things like uh, contacts that have just gone wonky. that you've got duplicates and you don't know where to turn to get rid of those duplicates or how to merge contacts together and all that kind of jazz. So that's the
Mm.
second question. Kind of, again, feeds off the first one, but
Yeah.
a much shorter answer than the first one. So I know you deal with this kind of stuff all the time. Obviously, I deal with this stuff all the time. The three questions that have come in just since the last episode, and to be fair, one of them was a client. So
Yeah.
I think they listen to the show. They should. I,
Well, you should say very nice things about them then.
I'll say very nice things about them. But yeah, anyway. So how does that sound? Sound good? I know you
That
can
sounds,
contribute to
yeah,
this
that's fine.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I haven't written any notes or anything, but I'm sure I can dive in on the cuff, as it were.
Oh, absolutely. And so, as I always am wont to do, I have a little introduction to the topic. Probably throw it over to you for a couple seconds to get your feedback on the introduction. And then I'll jump into the first question, which is from Frank. And I've got it kind of divvied up into parts. So we'll just kind of tackle each part,
Sure.
one at a time.
Yeah.
And when I say parts, I mean the various aspects of cloud services, contacts, calendars, notes, and the big one, email. So um, there we go. How's that sound? All right.
Sounds good to me.
So we are 20 minutes and 45 seconds in. So I'm going to write that down. All right. And then we'll get started. In 3, 2, 1. It's For Mac Guys Only, episode number 448 for March 29th, 2025. Hopping from cloud to cloud. Hey everyone, welcome back to For Mac Guys Only, the show for the Mac community, where we share our thoughts and opinions on current Mac news and events. And joining me to talk Mac is Darren Davies. Hey there, Darren.
Hi there.
And remember, if you are joining us live, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat room too. Brian happens to be in there right at the moment. So if you have any questions or comments as we move along, be sure to drop it in the chat room and we will try to address it as we move along. Well, since our last episode, Darren, I have not had one. Wait, let me say that again. Since our last episode, Darren, I have had not one, not two, but three different listeners ask for advice on moving from one cloud service to another. Or, in one
Uh,
case, tips for how to fix a misbehaving cloud service. And while many cloud services do provide ways to assist you with migration, and Google's paid service, Google Workspace, comes to mind, as does Microsoft Office 365, or whatever they happen to be calling it today, and even ProTime. They all come to mind. Uh, but simply handing your keys over to the service that you're planning to switch to and hoping that everything turns out okay in the end is not something that
uh,
I prefer to do. But I will admit, I have done it, uh, but only when it wasn't my data that I was dealing with. So, um, oh, and then when it comes to migrating to iCloud, I don't believe, and I hope someone will correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't believe that Apple offers any tools to help with the process of migrating from another cloud service to iCloud.
yeah, not directly. I think there's general importing you can. It's assumed that your data is held on a service, and
Yes.
when you log into the new service, you can then copy that data
Ooh,
yourself.
hold that thought.
Oh,
Hold
there we
that
go.
thought.
Sorry, I've
Hold that
jumped the
thought,
gun.
Darren.
I've jumped the gun.
Yeah. Well, because I also wanted to mention that there are those times, those awful, horrible, scary times when one walks into a mobile phone provider hoping to migrate from an old iPhone to a new one, or worse, from an Android phone to an iPhone and then trusting them when they say, "Oh, don't worry, Mr. Jones.
Oh, it'll be fine.
We'll take care of everything for you." Only to find when
Yeah,
you're
right.
done that you've got duplicates upon duplicates of contacts, none of them syncing properly to your preferred cloud service. And photos? Well, don't get me started on photos because one of the questions I
Who
got
knows?
was from someone who was doing just that, switching from Android to iPhone, and the
Oh,
lovely folks at
perfect.
the phone store, those lovely people, and the phone store shall remain nameless, by the way. But it was, according to the listener, apparently staffed by the quote, number two tech in the region, end quote. Well,
Wow.
that tech literally threw up their hands and said, "I got most of your stuff transferred, but I can't do anything about your photos, but you can look at them."
Oh, that's funny
Hmm,
because the photos is one of the easier ones to do.
yeah. Really? Really? That was the answer.
That's
Okay.
shocking, and he's number two in the region. That's
Number
shocking.
two in the region couldn't get their photos transferred. So,
You're fired.
after helping these folks out of the pits of doom that they found themselves mired in, I thought,
Oh dear.
hey, that would be a great topic for a show because I know, Darren, that you have had to deal with similar issues, and I'm sure you have
Oh,
your own
absolutely.
horror
Yeah,
stories to tell.
absolutely. Yep, certainly. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
No, no, go ahead.
Well, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Yes. um, I occasionally overhear people in our local Apple store, if they're new to the Mac or new to Apple in general. As you say, people from the Android world coming over and lovely people. They're buying their first ever Mac or their first ever iPhone. You think, oh,
Yeah,
excellent! This is going to be good.
yeah,
And often they get very good advice. I mean, when I've been in the store, they've been very good about transferring data. They'll do everything for you. Um, Especially if you already have an iPhone, you pop in the store, they'll do the whole migration from phone to phone in the store for you, so that it just has to catch up a bit when you go home. But the whole all the hard work of explaining what to do, even though the process is actually quite straightforward, and to us it's a walk in the park, but to someone brand new to the platform, they're not going to know what necessarily that you can just bring devices close together and they'll
right.
magically discover each other and offer to migrate themselves. So yeah, they do it all in the store for you, and the customers seem to be very happy when they come out. Um, and yeah, I don't see. It's funny because as you say there, the migrating your photos from Android, which often defaults to Google Photos
Google
syncing,
Photos. Yeah.
to iCloud Photo Library, copying things across, doing that sort of migration is actually quite straightforward. The scary bit comes when someone mentions the email word and the contacts and calendars, and then us poor techies tend to run screaming the other way. The scary side. The thing I find is that I reckon it might just be me. 99% of all problems can often boil down to just some issue with passwords or some issues with accounts and syncing those accounts with services. And those two things are 99% of all computing problems,
These
which is a
days.
bit shocking
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
days. Yeah.
Um, and to be clear, we're not planning to discuss the process of moving from an old iPhone to a new one yourself, or an old Mac to a new Mac yourself, which, as you
Yeah.
pointed out, is very easy if you are one, backing up your phone to iCloud, that's important, or two, backing up your Mac with Time Machine. Those two backup methods make the process of migrating to a new device much more seamless. And as you pointed out, Apple's making an effort to provide even more tools to migrate from an old to a new phone by just, as you said, holding them close together. And I expect well, I hear the rumor is that we're going to have something very similar coming to the Mac sooner than later. So that's all exciting, and it makes the process easier. There are still folks who are a little uneasy with the process and turn to folks like you or I to help them through it. But more specifically, I'm talking about when someone walks into, let's just say, Verizon store or T-Mobile store or AT&T,
Yeah.
and says, "Hey, I want to get a new iPhone. I'm not quite sure of the process." And the person behind the counter doesn't say, "Oh, just sign into your new iPhone with your Apple account and it'll migrate everything for you." No, they decide to hook it up to their little box behind the counter, USB to USB, and manually transfer stuff from one to the other, which totally messes the people up. So that's kind of what we're talking about. My
Yeah.
usual answer to someone who tells me that they're about to go into the store to get a new iPhone is, don't let them touch it. Don't let them touch it. Get your new phone. If you're unsure about the process, bring it to me. I'll help you sign into the new phone. We'll make sure your old one is backed up, and we'll get everything transferred over lickety split. And the nice thing is, even if they're trading in their old phone, more often than not, they're allowed to bring that back later. They don't have to hand it over
Well,
right at
yeah,
that
yeah.
moment.
You can defer the trade in,
You
definitely.
defer the trade in. So, that process is easy. Um, but I did want to start with the question from Frank because this is actually the longest one. He wrote, "My situation is that I have three accounts, and having these three accounts has become unmanageable. Is there a way, other than manually merging them?" We'll talk about that in a second. But is there a way, other than manually merging them, to get rid of this chaos that he's got with the three
Mm,
different
yeah,
accounts?
yeah.
The accounts are .mac, .me, and Gmail.
Right.
Okay, so my first question to Frank was, when you're talking about .mac and .me, is it the same username at me.com and the same username at mac.com? Because the good news is, if the username that's part of your .mac and .me are already the same, they're already one account. One is just an
Mm,
alias
excellent.
for the other one. One
Uh,
is your primary
yeah.
email, and one is an alias email. And
I
many
mean,
folks
Google does
have,
aliasing as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I've got a .mac, which I keep as my primary. I've got a .me, and I've got a .iCloud, and they all feed into the same inbox. They're all
they're the
one
same
and the
account.
same
Yeah.
account because .iCloud and .me are aliases to .mac. And I just like to use .mac because it's kind of the classic account,
It's
right?
cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So I use the .mac. But if I wanted to change to iCloud, if I wanted at iCloud.com to be my primary, it's actually pretty easy to do. You can change that up if you want to. And the interesting thing is, despite this being for Mac eyes only, the easiest way to do this is on your iPhone. And
For
I
iPhone, for eyes only.
yeah, for iPhone eyes only, because these steps don't work on the Mac, at least not yet. So to change from one Apple email address to another, so for example, from at mac.com to at icloud.com, on your phone, you go into settings and then go to Apple account and then go to sign in and security. Tap one of the other Apple email addresses. So for example, if your primary is .mac, tap your .icloud address, and then when you're within the settings for that iCloud address, there's a little slider that says primary email. Just flick that little slider on, and that's it. That's it. That's all you have to do to change from one Apple email address to another as your primary.
Yeah.
That's it.
Swap your primary.
Now, your primary Apple account email address might be something else. It might be at gmail.com, it might be at outlook.com, it might be something else. In which case, you can do the same thing. You can do it through your phone settings. You can also change it via the web. If you go to account.apple.com and sign into your Apple account, The process is, in my opinion, a little wonky and not as straightforward because what Apple tells you you need to do is you have to remove your current primary address, then select a new one, and they'll confirm it and then make that your primary address. That's a weird, scary process, if you ask me,
That does look a bit scary, especially if you're new to all of this. Absolutely.
especially if you're new to all of it. But because that's a little bit wonky, if you want to do it through the web, I'm going to link to Apple's support article that covers both methods in the show notes for this episode. So, uh, if that's you and you have a different email address, a non-Apple email address as your primary, and you want to switch to an Apple one as your primary, you can do it. Probably want to do it through your phone where it's simpler, but you can also do it through the web. And I'll link to that in the show notes. Now, if they are truly two different Apple accounts, and I have two Apple accounts. Do you have two Apple accounts? I have two Apple accounts.
Luckily, I only have one, so everything
You do?
is as simple as it could be.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I have two. One of them is my primary Apple account, and the other one is the account I use for media and
For
purchases.
media and family sharing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, family sharing is done under my primary, and
Oh,
my purchases are done under the secondary one. So I actually have two
not confusing
accounts.
at all.
Not confusing at all. Absolutely not. But Apple allowed that sort of thing way back in the day, and
Yes,
that's why I ended up
indeed.
with two accounts. Go. Don't even ask me how many Apple online store accounts I have. I have like four, and I can't
Wow.
figure out how to get them all merged. So I never remember where I purchased a particular piece of Apple hardware. I don't know which account
Oh
it was
no.
with. So I've come to just using my primary Apple account as the one I make purchases with and just forget about all the past purchases. Um,
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
but but with that said, um, again, there is a process that Apple has outlined. If you are like me and you've got one for your purchases and one as your primary and you want to merge them, this is a very, very new process, by the way. Very
Very
new. I
new.
think it was
Yeah.
just,
Only a couple, 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
yeah, just this year this was introduced.
That's it. Yeah.
Um,
Just a few short weeks ago it came in. Yeah.
yep. But there is a new process. It's under an Apple support article titled Migrate Purchases from One Apple Account to Another Apple Account. And again, I'll just link to that in the show notes because there's a whole series of steps you have to go through in order to merge the
Yeah.
two. Or you can do like me and just keep them separate, which seems like the easier way to go for me. Um, Now, here's the more complicated part about Frank's question. He mentioned the .mac. Oh, by the way, and his email accounts were one and the same. I verified with him. They were one and the same
Cool.
at mac.com and at me.com. So in his case, that's one Apple account. From Apple's perspective,
Yeah.
it's one account. One is an alias of the other, and he can easily change one or the other to be his primary Apple account email address. So,
Yeah.
um,
So
but the other
effectively,
part,
he's only got two accounts then. So he's got his Apple account and his Gmail provided
Gmail. Yep.
services. Yeah.
So that's the more complicated part. Now we want to address how to get rid of that Gmail account, how to remove that complication from his life of
Mm.
having a separate account. And in this case, even though he said he didn't want to manually merge things, it is a bit of a manual effort, but it can be done. So my recommendation is to do this on the Mac. This is absolutely the
Yes.
easiest place to do this. There are ways to export from Gmail your contacts and your calendars and your, well, you can export your email too, by the way. That's
Yeah,
Google's
and
takeout.
then import them if you like. Yes,
Yeah,
but you may not need to.
and we can kind of address this when we talk about email later, but the problem with importing exported mail into something like Apple Mail is it doesn't import it into your iCloud account. It imports it into uh, a local account. And the goal here is to have everything into his iCloud account. So rather than exporting from Gmail, which again you can do, um, I'm going to suggest that you first make sure that your Apple account and your Gmail account are added to your Mac, right? That's the very first thing you want to do is go into your Mac system settings, and you want to go in and make sure under internet accounts that both your Gmail account and your iCloud account are added to the Mac. That's step one. With them both added, go into each account and turn on contacts, turn on calendars, turn on notes, and turn on mail. And what that will do is enable the contacts for each of those services within the corresponding apps on your Mac. Unsurprisingly, contacts, calendars, notes, reminders. Let's see. I don't, can you turn on reminders for Gmail? I don't think you can.
I can't remember. I know definitely notes.
No, you can't. I just
Reminders, I can't
verified.
remember.
Okay,
I can't. I don't.
you
Yeah, yeah,
you can't. But you can do notes, you can do contacts, you can do calendars. So make sure those are on for both accounts. All right. Now, my first suggestion, I'm going to start with contacts. Let's start with contacts, Darren. Um, my first suggestion is to make a contacts archive. So this is a feature of Apple's Contacts app that allows you to back up everything as it exists prior to merging. And you're going to find that option under File. This is within the Contacts app under File, Export, and then Contacts Archive. And when you create a Contacts Archive, it creates one archive file, but that one archive file contains all of your contacts, all within one.
yeah.
And that makes it easier to bring it back in later if something
Just in
goes
case
wrong.
things go wrong.
Yeah. So create a contacts archive. Super simple to do. Just takes a few seconds. Literally, I have had hundreds of contacts export in just a couple seconds on the Mac. So
Yeah,
create a contacts archive. And in fact, heck, even if you are not going through the process of merging accounts, it's not a bad idea from time to time to create a
yeah.
contacts archive.
Create a file and squirrel it away somewhere.
Squirrel it away somewhere, date it.
Yeah,
I'll often
that's
do
it.
that. I'll append to the end of the file name. I'll append something like, for example, 032925. So I know that, or in your case, I suppose it would probably be 290325. Do you do
Oh
the
yes,
you do
day,
the
month, year.
date, month, year, right? Yeah, we do month,
Yeah.
date, year.
You do it the
Well,
wrong way round. Yeah.
we do it the wrong way around. Right, exactly. Well, that's what happens when you go across the Atlantic. Things get wonky. Um, but anyway, I'll attach, like, for example, my contacts archive, I'll export it, and at the end of the file name, I'll put 032925. So I know that that's when I created that archive. In this particular case, through the merging process, you don't have to be quite so specific, but creating that archive first is a really good step so that you have a fallback. Um, then, once you've got that backup, with the Contacts app open on your Mac, and again, this doesn't really work on the iPhone or iPad. You have to do this on the Mac. What you're going to see is your contacts list for Gmail and your contacts list for iCloud. Since we are moving from Gmail to iCloud, you want to go within your Gmail contacts, select the contacts that you want to move, and then here's the complicated part, drag them to your iCloud account.
Yeah, and drag them to the right folder. Don't drop them in the wrong place.
Don't drop them in the wrong place, but drag them to your iCloud account. And that's it. Now,
And you, yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, no. I was just probably gonna jump the gun a bit there as well. Possibly jump the shark actually.
Okay,
um,
Fonzie.
yeah, no. I was just gonna suggest if you left it like that, then contacts wouldn't necessarily be sure where to put new contact details. So you would have to go and select the what should be the default if you are going to leave both of them active, or if you're, because there's various ways of approaching this entire thing, or you may decide that once you have migrated your contacts from Gmail services to iCloud contacts, then you just remove the Gmail account from contacts, so it's only showing you one, in which case it would automatically default to that being the default place for when you put a new contact in. But if you don't do that and you add a new contact and the last one you added was Gmail, then that would be the default. So you would think you'd be using your newly migrated iCloud contacts, but you wouldn't, because as you add new contacts, they would go into Gmail instead and not be put into iCloud, and then you'd end up with them in two different places, and you wouldn't know where things were at all, and things would get rather complicated.
Well,
So yeah, just remember to set your defaults.
and that's an excellent point, and it definitely applies to the phone. On your iPhone, you can absolutely specify which account will be your default for contacts, which will be your default for calendars, et cetera, et cetera. However, I don't believe there is a way to do that on the Mac.
That's a good question. I might look that up
Yeah,
whilst you're saying
why
that.
don't you look that up? Because
I
I
will.
don't believe
Yes.
that there is currently a way to set a default account. Now, in this particular case, it doesn't apply for Frank because our ultimate goal
Yeah.
here is to get rid of the Gmail account. And so that's kind of the approach that we're taking here. Um, but while you're looking that up, I'm gonna go on to the next step because
Okay.
one of the
Oh, here
things
we are. Yes, default account. So in contacts settings general, default account is listed. So if you have more than one account there, if you can choose the accounts there, or you can choose on my Mac. So never choose on my Mac, because if you choose that and you added a new contact whilst your Mac contacts was active, then it won't be saved to any syncing service at all, and it will only be in one place, and you'll be very confused.
which you may want. You know what? I think, and we'll go down a little rat hole here, Darren. I think I am not seeing them because I only have one contacts account enabled. So I don't see
uh,
that option.
so do I, but I've only got one account enabled, but I do see in contacts settings general, um, default account, which
And
is right at the bottom.
I did not see that until I enabled a
Oh,
second account. So
interesting.
if you do not see the option to set a default account, which is where my confusion came in, I didn't see that. And so I thought perhaps that feature wasn't there, but it is there if you have more than one contacts, and I presume calendar and what have you. I know it's in calendars. If you have more than one account enabled on your Mac under
Yeah.
internet accounts, then you will see the option under contact settings, general, default account, and you can choose which one new contacts will go into when you create a
Yes.
new contact.
That's
Okay.
that's the key setting. Yeah.
So you must have a second account enabled. I don't know why that
Well,
would be
I
different.
don't, but I must have had one enabled at some point. So in the past, I probably did. So it's possibly a fallover from a past setting that I had an account enabled in the past that I no longer have enabled. So I've only got
Well,
one, but that setting still appears for me, which is
let's
interesting.
see if that's true because I just disabled the other account and now the option's
Oh,
gone.
oh, how bizarre! So I don't know why both of our Macs are behaving differently. That's quite funny.
Wow. Okay. Anyway,
Okay, that's
there you go.
unexplained.
Unexplained X file
Tales of the Unexpected.
tales of the
Oh, you won't
unexpected.
know. You probably won't know that. That's a UK TV show from back in the day. Tales of the Unexpected.
Oh, I do know.
It's a
Yeah,
little bit
no, I
like. Oh,
I
do you
know.
know? Oh, it's a little
Yeah.
bit like your Twilight Zone type. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's see. Moving on. Oh, okay. So, um, that's it. You drag from one account to the other. That is going to be Frank's approach in this case because he wants to get rid of Gmail, keep iCloud. So you're going to drag from Gmail to iCloud. And then, as Darren pointed out, you're going to turn off contacts for Gmail later. Or actually, you'll probably just disable that account entirely
Yeah, you can
if
either
need
leave
be.
it there and disable it, or you can just say my default is now iCloud, or you can, as you say, completely remove the account you've migrated from, so the only one you have active is the one you've migrated to.
Yep.
That makes things simpler.
It makes things much, much simpler. Now, here's the important bit. This will likely create duplicates. I mean, just know that that's going to happen unless you
Yeah,
specifically
yeah, yeah.
only pull over contacts that you know are not duplicates, which you can do. But if you grab everything in your Gmail contacts list and you drag it over, it will likely create duplicates. But the Max Contacts app, and this is why I recommend doing it on the Mac. The Max
Mm,
Contacts app has a wonderful, wonderful look for duplicates feature.
yes,
And using that
superpower.
feature will highlight duplicates that are within your contacts. And keep in mind that if it's not sure, so for example, a name and phone number might match, it would say that's a duplicate. But if you have a phone number and a different name, it may not recognize it as a duplicate or a slightly different spelling or something like that. So the Mac
Mm, yeah,
will play it safe when you use the look for duplicates feature. Just keep that in mind. If you still end up with duplicates after running look for duplicates and merging those duplicates together, the other neat feature of the Mac's Contacts app is that you can select multiple cards, two, three, or even four cards that you know are duplicates. You can select them all and then from the menu choose Merge Cards. And you're going to find that under the Card menu and then Merge Selected Cards.
cool.
Fantastic feature and a really,
Very
really great
useful.
way to
Yeah.
clean up any contacts list, whether you're
Mm.
merging in from another service or not. So, two fantastic features, and neither of which I believe exist on the iPhone. So,
No, no, exactly. Yeah. So it's always easier to move data between services on the Mac
yep,
because uh, you've got more scope there for picking up and moving data between folders without having to go back and forth between screens. Because on phones and iPads, you pretty much got one screen at a time, whereas on the Mac you can have multiple pointers to your service folders. So
yep.
although they look like folders, they're not folders on your Mac. They're folders on the service provider's computer, somebody else's computer,
Somebody else's computer.
effectively.
Uh, so that's the general process. You enable both. You enable contacts for both accounts. You drag and drop the contacts from one service to the other service. Because remember, you could do the reverse. You could go from iCloud to Gmail
Yeah,
if you wanted to, or
migrate
Gmail
to,
to
yeah, exactly, yeah, the other
Microsoft
way, yeah,
365, or to
or to
Proton,
Outlook.com,
or heck, even Yahoo. If you really, really want to move to Yahoo,
wow, if you really, really
you
wanted,
can
you could do the
you
migration
can
to Yahoo.
use this process to migrate your contacts over to Yahoo if you want to. Just saying. Now, the last step after you've done that, after you've dragged from one service to the other, you've merged your duplicates, you're sure everything's okay. The last step, as Darren said, is to turn off, in Frank's case, his Gmail account's contacts under system settings. That's it. Just turn them off. And they will no longer appear. They will no longer appear. And you'll be down to just your iCloud contacts. So that's contacts. Moving on to calendars. Oh, did you have something to add to
Uh,
contacts?
Not entirely, no. The only point I was going to say, I was going to say something like, as they said in Jurassic Park, um, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Uh, uh, when they were saying about that, that was about creating prehistoric life, of course, which is not what we're doing here. But uh, the idea is, um, to me, it's a mistake to split your services across services for email and contacts. Less so for calendars. You can do that with calendars, but I think it's not terribly a terribly good plan to have your email provider with one service and your contacts syncing provider with a different service, um, because then you can't. The services don't know about each other, so you can't say, for instance, add a new contact from your mail, which won't be able to automatically add the contact because it's synced to a different service, and vice versa. You won't be able to start a new email from a contact because that contact doesn't know what your email service is. So you'd have issues there. And also related to the calendar, there's a slight problem there with splitting things across services. So if your calendar is synced with, say, Gmail, and your email provider is Outlook.com, if you order an Amazon parcel or something, then one of the automatic features is to automatically add a note into your calendar to say when your parcel's about to arrive. None of that process will work if you're splitting uh, uh, your calendars, contacts, and email across separate services, because the services don't know about each other.
Except, I'm going to add an exception here, Darren. If you are dependent upon accessing your other service via the web,
Yes,
yes, this
then you will have
all
all sorts of issues.
100% applies. However, this is a very, very good argument for using the built-in clients of Mac OS, iOS, iPad OS, or even
Yeah,
a third party client. So for example, whether I use Apple Mail or I use Mozilla Thunderbird, my contacts list is the contacts list that the Mac is aware of and appears within the contacts app. So if you're using Apple Mail and you're using Apple Mail to talk to Gmail, but you're using iCloud to talk to contacts and calendars, you still get that nice integration, but
just
that's
as
when
long
you're
as you stick to
using
your Macs.
but that's when
And
you're using, the built-in standalone apps to interact with it. In other words, traditional clients for interacting with
yeah,
contacts and calendars, and this works for Fantastical and BusyCal and things like that as well.
yeah,
If
it's a
it's
good
an
point,
app,
because the Mac and the iPhone and the iPad will amalgamate services together seamlessly. But
yeah,
if you stray away from that lovely walled garden situation, and try to access your webmail with whichever service you're using, it won't know anything about the other services that you
no,
synchronize to, and everything will be very confused.
yeah,
So I tend
that's
to
true.
completely avoid mixing different provider services for email, calendar, and contacts. I keep those three things at least the same. The other stuff is fine. You can mix and match. Say, for instance, you can have your notes in iCloud because they're not directly linked to features in email, contacts, and calendars. Although you can do things between them, they're kind of separate. So the added benefits you get from what you can do with notes in iCloud is worth
Mm,
having it
mhm.
synchronized there rather than synchronized together with another service. Say, for instance, you use Gmail for the other three. You needn't think that you have to synchronize your notes with Gmail as well.
Right, absolutely, yeah. Google Keep just isn't that great.
No,
It's fine.
not for Apple
It's
users anyway.
not
It's
for
good.
Apple
It's
users.
good.
It's fine, but
Yeah, that's it.
Apple Notes is far, far better, far, far better. And reminders, as we said, you already can't sync reminders to the Mac or to the iPhone from Gmail. So he, you kind of have to settle on one service or the other. Um, but you're right. You're right. If you do from time to time want to take advantage of a web interface to your mail service, it does help to have everything syncing to that service
Yeah,
you're
that's the main point I was
you're
making. Yeah,
talking to.
absolutely.
Um, Not critical, especially if it's not
No,
your primary way of accessing your email. But it is definitely something to be aware of, and
yeah,
a very, very strong
it's
consideration. And I do have a tip on that. If you're
ah,
migrating your mail from Gmail to, let's say, iCloud, there is a way you can kind of make sure you keep getting that mail and you can reply to it from your new email address without needing to sign in to gmail.com to get it. So we'll talk about that in just a
yeah.
minute.
Okay.
Calendars. Calendars. This is very similar to contacts. And my advice is very similar too. First, make a calendar archive. Again, like with contacts, you can archive all of the contents of your calendar. I have done this in the past and I have actually had to restore them in the past. So it it is a good step to take when you're about to take drastic action like merging multiple accounts together. And similar to contacts, you're going to find it under File, and then Export, and then Calendar Archive. And again, save it someplace safe. Now, the next step is with Calendar open. Uh, I'm going to suggest exporting each of your Google calendars. Select a calendar. Don't export them all, just select one at a time. Select a calendar. And this is where it gets a little confusing because the service is called Google Calendars or Google Calendar, but they also refer to the individual listings like work, home, etc., as calendars. So you're, you're
Yes.
going to be exporting a calendar from calendars, okay? Just keep that in mind as you're moving forward here. So you're going to select a calendar, and for simplicity's sake, let's say you have work and home. Those are your two Google calendars, and you see them within Apple calendars. You see work, you see home. Select a calendar to export. Let's select work, for example, and then go to File, Export, and then Export again. And the Mac is going to prompt where to save it. Save it someplace safe and save it to a place you can easily get to again. And a good place to do that would be your desktop. Create a folder on your desktop, call it Gmail Exports, and export each of your calendars into that Gmail Exports folder on your desktop. You know where they are and you know where to get to it because we're going to need it in just a couple minutes. So do that with each of your calendars. In my case, I have multiple calendars in both services, and I might be exporting as many as 6 or 8 calendars. You might
Ooh,
have one or two, but for each of the calendars, and those are the ones that have the little colored icon next to it, for each of the calendars, select it, choose File, Export, Export again, save it out, and save it someplace you can get to. Then, once all of your Google Calendars are exported, turn off Google Calendar under your Gmail account under System Settings. Turn it off so it disappears. It's no longer in the Calendars app. And the next step is going to be to import those individual Google Calendars that you saved earlier. Within Calendar, choose File and Import. Select one of the calendars that you exported out, work, for example.
yeah.
And here's where the magic comes in. You are going to be asked which of your iCloud calendars you would like to add those imported events to. In other words, the destination calendar.
Yeah.
Now, in your case, hopefully they're named the same. But if they're not the same, you can choose a different one. It does not have to be named the same. So if you're importing your work calendar, you can import it into, say, stuff I got to do for the boss. It doesn't matter. As long as you know what calendar it's going into,
Yeah.
select that calendar you want to be the destination, and click OK. And then repeat that step for each of your exported Google calendars. And that's it.
Yeah.
Super
What could go
simple.
wrong?
What could go wrong? Export each calendar and then turn off Google Calendars so that they're no longer within your Calendars app. And then
That's when you find out what went wrong.
that's when you find out what went wrong. And then import each of those. And when you import it, the Mac will ask you, the Apple Calendars app will ask you, which calendar do you want to import these events to? You select one of your iCloud calendars, import it, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Simple.
Simple. Notes. The notes we talked about just a moment ago. Just like with contacts, drag and drop it. Turn on Google Notes.
Yeah.
Turn on iCloud Notes with both, or with the Notes app open. Take your Google Notes, drag them to your iCloud Notes. That's it. Super simple. So that's
Yeah.
contacts, calendars, and notes. Now we're up to mail.
That's the scary one.
That's the scary one. That is the scary one. It's a little trickier. It's mostly time consuming. That's it. Especially if, like me, you have a very complex label or folder structure within Gmail. Bringing all those folders, as Apple Mail
Yes.
sees them as folders, Google calls them labels, but bringing
Mm.
all those folders into your iCloud account is a long, drawn out process.
This is why I suggested last show to simplify everything and just use the archive folder for everything. Then
that
you've
would
only got one folder to move.
that would save some time. That would save some time.
Exactly.
And while we're talking about it, let's say you do what Darren suggests and have everything in your archive folder. You're going to have thousands upon thousands of messages in that folder.
All this, yeah, potentially a lot in there, yeah.
In which case, as we start talking about moving content from one account to the other, you are probably not going to want to move all of the content at once. You are probably going to want to do it as I typically do it in little batches. So, for example, if I'm moving, and I do this for clients fairly frequently. So if I'm moving their email from one account to another, I will typically go by years, and then I'll go
Yeah, yeah,
in,
sensible.
let's say January 1st through April 30th. You know,
Yeah.
Part of the reason is I have had failures occur. I've had
Yeah.
instances where the mail stops copying for some reason, whether it's a
Yeah.
problem with the destination server
Usually at
or it's a problem with the.
usually at 99% when it's nearly complete and you don't know where it's failed because it's
That's
not done it
it.
in order.
That's it. When you don't know where it's failed and you're trying to copy an entire year's worth of messages, what a mess. What a mess.
Or more.
But
Yeah.
if you're doing it in chunks, little batches, January 1st
Yeah.
through
Much
February
better.
28th
Yeah.
or something like that, it makes it much easier to narrow down where the problem message was. And typically you can just go into the destination folder and see what the last one is and kind of pick up from there, or know which message caused the problem. And sometimes it is,
Yeah.
an
It's difficult.
individual message that
If
causes
you
the
do it
problem.
automatically, sometimes if you did do it automatically, sometimes they're copied out of order, so that leaves you in a bit of a mess. I did have a big problem once when I tried to do that early on before I knew about all these things. I did mistakenly try to move 20 years worth of emails from one folder to another, and I just copied them all, and I
Yikes.
didn't do it in date order either. So when it did inevitably fail, I didn't know where I was, and I had to start again.
Oh my gosh.
So don't do what I did.
What a mess. I've done that too. I'll have to admit, I've done that too. And it's a mess. And there's a reason why I now recommend doing it in batches, because
Yes,
I've
yes,
had the I've had the catastrophic failures. So doing it in batches is a good way to kind of keep on top of what's moved and um, where things can be picked up again in the case of a failure. So, all right, with that out of the way, if you are sure you want to move your Gmail inbox over to your iCloud inbox, go ahead with that advice in mind. Go ahead and drag the messages from one inbox to the other, and Apple Mail will move them for you. As I said, I do suggest doing them in batches, a few hundred at a time, even a few thousand at a time, but do it in batches where you can stay on top of where the first message was and where the last message was, and that'll make
yeah,
it a lot
yeah,
easier to recover if there's a problem. Um, and then do that for each of the folders within your Gmail account, including, don't forget, your sent folder and any other
yeah,
labels or folders that you've created. Now, you do not necessarily have to move your archive folder. In Gmail, the archive folder is a collection of what is within all the other labels.
right, okay, yes, the pointers, multi-folder pointers, yeah,
Yes, so
or
if,
multiple labels,
yeah,
yeah,
labels are effectively tags in Gmail
yes,
nomenclature.
tags,
And the archive folder or archive tag, what do they call it? All archive? I think they call it all archive. Um, that is a collection of everything. Everything is in that folder. So you don't necessarily have to move that, but um,
yeah.
you can. You'll end up with, effectively, you'll end up with duplicates, is
You may
what'll
end up with
happen.
duplicates, yeah, exactly, 'cause- yeah, yeah,
Um, but you do want to do it with every other folder that you've created. You do want to do it with your sent folder. You do want to do it maybe with your drafts folder, maybe. Often what's in your drafts folder can be discarded. Often what's in your trash can be discarded. Often what's in your, well, that's it. Drafts and trash can usually be, oh, spam. That's the other one. That can almost always be discarded and not be moved over. But any folder that you've created as part of your organizational structure for your email, you definitely want to move from one to the other. And depending on your email client, you can sometimes move an entire folder from one to the other. I will often do these kind of migrations with Thunderbird or with Postbox. Uh, Technically, Postbox doesn't exist anymore. And the reason I used Postbox was because it was based upon the code base of Thunderbird, so I was familiar with how it worked, but it was not my primary email client. So it was safe for me to set up somebody else's accounts in Postbox and do all this migration and moving without affecting my email accounts. But if you're dealing with your own email accounts, something like Thunderbird or Postbox might work. If you are moving to iCloud, as is the case with Frank, then you pretty much want to use Apple Mail. There isn't a great way to set up iCloud within Thunderbird.
no, no,
Um, oh, Alternatively, here's another thought I had. If you want to keep your Gmail email separate from your iCloud mail, you might opt to create a Gmail folder within your iCloud account and then recreate your Gmail folder structure underneath that. So,
yeah, yeah,
if you
there's quite a few options here, yeah, exactly, it doesn't have to go the way that we're prescribing here specifically.
absolutely
Although
do
that
what works
can
best
be
for
part
you.
of the problem in a way, because there's several ways of doing this. That can be part of the problem because people may not necessarily know which is the best way to go, which route to go down. It can become
We're
confusing.
presenting the
Like,
only way, Darren. This is the only way.
really?
Yeah, there is no other way. This is it. You
Wow.
have to do it this way. No, no, I'm kidding, of course. Um,
Of course.
but uh, you might want to do that. Let's say you have had your iCloud account for quite some time and you have a folder structure within that iCloud that represents how you organize things for that email. And now you've got this other folder structure for your Gmail account, and that represents how you organize things for your Gmail email. You might want to keep those folder structures separate, and that's why I suggest maybe
Yeah,
you
yeah.
would want to create a Gmail folder and recreate your Gmail account underneath
Duplicate the structure
that.
from
Duplicate
one
the
to the
structure
other.
there.
Yeah.
Maybe. It also allows you, if you don't intend to maintain that as your primary email address, it also allows you to click the little disclosure triangle and just kind of hide everything, and you just
Mm.
know that anything that happened under your Gmail account is
Yeah,
under
then
this
that becomes your
this
link to your
hidden.
historical email rather than the one that you're
Exactly.
actually using. Yeah.
Exactly. It does keep it online. It does keep it synced to iCloud, but it's not something that you have to look at because you've hidden
Mm.
everything under this primary folder that you've called Gmail. So that would be an alternative if you wanted to kind of keep it in iCloud but keep it separate. Um, all right. Now, with that said, that whole process of moving mail from one account to the other is a long process. If you're doing it in batches, it can seem like it's taking forever, but over the course of a few days, you'll get everything moved, and
A few days.
it
Yeah, be
is.
patient.
Be patient. It is a few days. It's not as quick as
Yes, can
contacts.
be.
It's
Yeah.
not as quick as calendars. It's not as quick as notes. It
Yeah.
it does take some planning. It does take some
That's it.
um, going through your structure and making sure that you're getting everything that you want.
Yeah.
Um, and as we mentioned early on, if you don't care if it syncs to iCloud, you can always use Google's takeout feature to export it as inbox files and import those files.
And keep that as an archive, an offline archive. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can keep it as an offline archive, or you can import them into Apple Mail, and they will import as local folders versus being imported into your iCloud
Yeah.
account. So, as Darren rightly pointed out, there's lots of different ways you could do this, but we are approaching this, or I was approaching it when I talked to Frank. I was approaching it from the standpoint that he wanted to keep everything, move everything into iCloud, and just stop using Gmail.
My question would be: did Frank say why he wanted to do this in the first place? Because that would be an interesting thing
He was just tired of keeping track
to
of
know.
multiple inboxes.
Oh, just the complexity. Yeah,
Yeah,
I see.
yep,
Too much going on. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
yep.
because
Just wanted one
it,
inbox. That's it.
it is nice to migrate your mail over to a service that you are going to maintain and use as your primary email, and just have one to
Yeah,
simplify everything. That although that also there's quite a lot involved in that. If everyone else knows you by a different email, and also the logins you use for all of your web services, they may use your previous email login as well. So
right.
you'd possibly
Yeah,
have to re-log into all of those as well. So this could take you a week to do in total, not just moving your mail, but re-logging into your services that you've used that mail account as your primary login for, and potentially letting all of your contacts know that your new email address has changed, for instance. It's worth doing, but it's something you don't want to start, that you don't want to do this when you're in a rush. You need to plan this out.
well, two things. One, I appreciate the lead in, Darren, because that dovetails very nicely into what I was just going to suggest as the final step in all of this.
uh,
Um, and that is to make sure that you go into your Gmail settings. We hinted at this a little while ago. Gmail settings, and then under See All Settings, and then under Forwarding and Pop/IMAP,
oh yes, yes.
the last thing you want to do is enable forwarding to your iCloud account. Now, there's a little process involved in doing this. If Gmail is already not aware of your iCloud address, you need to add it. You need to confirm it so that they know it's really you. And then once you have added your iCloud account to your Gmail account under forwarding and pop, you can send all future messages that are being sent to your Gmail
Yeah,
automatically to your
yeah,
iCloud inbox. So that would be the last step. And that is part of the whole process, as Darren said, of alerting people what your new email address is. And
Hmm.
one of the things I've kind of noticed these days is that people don't really know or care what your email address is. They just reply to the
That's right.
last message that you sent them, right?
That's it. They'll
Or
be
they'll,
updating their own contact for you.
yeah, they'll look for an email that you sent and they'll say compose new or something like that. So they don't necessarily know your email address, but once you start sending email out under your new address or your new primary address, I should say, if you
Hmm.
had both before,
Yes.
people will just kind of naturally start responding to it and or recognize that you have this new email address and that they should update your contacts list if they do that sort of thing like I do.
Hopefully they do. They
Hopefully they
should.
do, yeah. And it doesn't hurt to let people know, to just send an email out to your most
Yeah.
important
You could
contacts and say,
send.
please
That's it.
update your address books. This is the new email address I'd like you to send me email to. Uh,
You could do a mass mailing to your newly migrated contacts and
you
tell
could,
them all about
you could,
your email address change.
yeah. So how's that for a short answer? Migrating from Gmail
That was
to
only one.
iCloud,
Yeah, that's only one answer to one question.
it can be done. Migrating from Gmail to
Absolutely.
iCloud can be done. It just takes a little effort, and it helps when you break it up into chunks, like
Yeah,
like we
steps.
presented it here. You know, do your contacts, do your calendars, do your notes, and finally do your email, and then make sure that forwarding is on so that when someone sends an email to your old address, it'll show up in the inbox of your new account. And quite frankly, if you really don't want to go through the process of literally moving mail from one account to another, you could opt to keep both on for mail and just know that when you want to check
Yeah,
your email,
yeah.
but in Frank's case, he wanted to simplify things. And so I think as part of that simplification process,
That's it. Yeah.
actually moving your mail from one account to the other is probably the right course of action.
It would be if what you want to achieve is to simplify. Yes. Else you do have more flexibility having multiple accounts active. But like you say, that's part of the whole problem in the first place. It's all too complicated. There's a lot going on, and a lot that can go wrong as well, and also
Yep.
possibly feeding into your next question, um, which is that things can go wrong if one of your devices is syncing across one set of services, but another device you think is set up correctly but isn't, and that one is syncing against a different set of services. Then they will definitely not be in sync, and you'll have a syncing error.
And that's really one of my two final tips, Darren. The first is, and I know we already mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it again because it applies equally well to email as it does to contacts and to calendars, and that's to do this in small batches at first. Get comfortable with the process. Even if you're moving contacts from one account to the other, try a couple first. Just understand how the process works before you
Mm.
grab all 400 in your Gmail contacts and drag them over. Try three. Try one.
Yeah,
Try 10. Just try a
yeah,
very small batch so that you can feel comfortable with the process, know what's going to happen, see what the results are, and then do the rest of them.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
that would apply to calendars as well. Import one
yep,
calendar, see how it
yep.
works.
Just try it with one. Yeah,
Just try it with one, and then email two. Try one folder.
yeah.
Pick
Move
one of
one
your
folder.
smaller
Yeah, something
folders
like that.
and
That's
bring
it.
it over, and just understand how that process works. And then that also, when something doesn't work as expected, you can step back and you can try again. So that's one tip. And then the other tip is, as you just said, Darren, and maybe I should just let you say this, on your iPhone, on your Mac, on your iPad, on every device that's going to talk to these services, make sure that under your internet accounts, only the account that you want to work with is the one that's turned on. So in
Yeah,
this case, we're migrating from Gmail to iCloud. So in the end, the only service that should be on the iPhone, on the iPad, on the Mac, no matter what service you've decided to settle on, Contacts, calendars, notes, reminders, and mail should be what's on under iCloud on the phone, on the Mac, and on the iPad. And
Yeah,
nothing else should be on. Everything else should be turned off or
that's it.
actually just disabled. That's the nice thing about the Mac is that you can disable, and the iPhone, you can disable an
Yeah, yeah.
account. So in the event that you may want to go back to it someday, um,
Just re-enable it again.
just
Exactly.
re-enable it again. Yep. And it's just little sliders. Just slide it
Yeah,
off and it'll disappear. You're not actually deleting anything. You're just turning it off so that it's not there anymore.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The important thing is your devices are talking to the same service. So if you
Yep.
went through this process on the Mac, say, to migrate from Gmail to iCloud, um, don't be surprised if you pick up your iPhone and look at your contacts and they're not there or they're all wrong, because your phone won't yet know that it should now be syncing to iCloud for its contacts rather than Gmail. So
That's
so they
right.
won't match up
They won't match up.
until you tell them to. So the idea is you make sure that all of your account syncing services for all your devices point to the same thing. Just as long as they're all pointing to the same thing, they'll stay in sync. If they're pointing to something, if one device is pointing to something different, then you won't know where you are. All hell will break loose.
Things just go cattywampus. Um,
That's a good word.
a little side note, I hinted at this at the beginning. I know, I'm sure, and I know there are tools to help with this migration process. They exist. I'm not aware of any offhand because I find that manually moving stuff is easy enough that I just haven't bothered looking
yeah,
for
I,
these tools.
I think I tend to do it manually myself, in
Yeah.
exactly the same way you've described. But that's only really because I've got used to it. I think I've never used it, but I think there is an app on the Google Play Store written by Apple.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's an Apple migration assistant on the Google Play Store for Android, which should. I've never used it, so I've never seen it work in person. But I hear some good things and some potential bad things when it doesn't go quite right. It should allow you to migrate a lot of stuff from your Android device to your iCloud persona. Uh, for instance, that does include reminders, I think. So that's a way to, if you've got a big reminder set up on your Android device, to migrate it to the equivalent Apple's reminder service, but through this migration. Well, effectively, it's a migration assistant, but on the Android Google Play Store.
Okay. And there's one thing we have not talked about because it is more complicated. It does require a third party service, and that's messages. So,
Ah, yes,
our point in having this discussion was to help Frank move from Gmail to iCloud, neither of which really deals with messages. So, it wasn't
no,
part of this
separate
particular
issue.
conversation. But I will bring it up because the
Hmm.
other question that came up, and this is where the photos question came into play,
Okay.
is from Lamar and Nancy. Now, in their case, the difference was that they were Mac users, but they were also Android users.
Righto.
And by using their automated tools, the phone store that they went to get their iPhones, which they got some really nice iPhones, by the way, but the
Excellent.
phone store totally messed them up.
Oh no.
And their little automated devices created all manner of duplicates, missed data,
Oh,
and so on.
oh
Um,
no.
but one thing that it did do well, and this is something that is very difficult, if not impossible, to do manually by yourself, is migrate their messages. So their messages did
Right.
get migrated from one phone to the other, which, as we know, if you're going from iPhone to iPhone, is not a problem. But if you're going from Android to iPhone or vice versa, it's a problem. It's a big problem if you want to keep your old messages. Not only that, but on their Mac, they were sharing a single account. So
Oh,
in
that's
their
not.
case, they only had one
Fun.
Apple
Yeah,
account. They didn't have two Apple accounts, they only had one. So,
but two phones. Yes, one
but
account, but two phones.
but two phones, and those phones were syncing to
Oh
Google.
dear.
So,
Yes,
unlike Frank's situation, what we had to do with
that's
Lamar and Nancy is we had to create a new Apple account for one of them,
yes.
and then we had to migrate from their Gmail. And in their case, they decided to keep Gmail as their email service, by the way.
Okay. Yep,
But
yep. That's valid. Yeah.
we had to migrate their contacts and calendars and notes from their Gmail account to their new Apple account and to their old Apple account. So it was like a two-pronged approach because
Yeah.
not only were we migrating from Google to Apple, but we were also migrating from Google to a new Apple account and their old Apple account. So we're kind of splitting into two. So it got a little messy there. Um, but they are the ones that the phone store said we can't do anything about migrating your photos. And yes, you can get the Google Photos app for the iPhone, and it works great. You can get it. But having the Google Photos app on your iPhone does not automatically
That
take the photos
no.
that are in Google and bring them into your Apple Photos account.
Absolutely.
So I said,
Did
let's try something. Let's
you?
try something, and then we'll talk about messages because I have a tip on that too. But um, uh, I said, let's try something. Let's select a small batch using my own advice. Let's select a small batch of photos within the Google Photos app on the iPhone and tap share and see what kind of options we have. And sure
Okay.
enough, there is an option to save the photos like like you can otherwise. You
Yeah.
tap share,
Save to Photos app and sync to
save the
iCloud.
photos,
iCloud Photo
and
Library.
they transferred over full resolution, date intact, EXIF data intact, everything transferred over. And so rather than sit there and do thousands of their photos, I said, here's how you do it. And the nice
Yeah.
thing is that the Google Photos app allows you to select small batches of photos. The photos are grouped by date, for example, and you can just tap next to the date and it selects all the photos within that date. You tap share, share it to photos, boom, they're all over there. And then once they've
Cool.
they've shared all their photos from Google to to Apple Photos, they could turn off or delete the Google Photos app and they're done.
Yeah,
Or
because the
they could keep
migration
it
is
there as a
done. Yeah.
backup. Um, Now, the other way to do that, of course, would be to use Google's takeout feature, export all your photos from Google Photos,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
You
import
can
them.
you
You
can
can do
also
that.
do that on the Mac side as well. So say for instance you went to iCloud.com on the Mac
Yep.
um, to get an import, and well actually no, you would do it the other way around. So you would go to your Google Photos on the web, then you could drag and drop stuff directly into the Photos app on your Mac and recreate your album structure there, and then it would sync back up to iCloud Photo Library when you turn that on. Um, so yeah, you could do it all from the Mac as well, but using the website.
But can you drag from photos.google.com, Google Photos on the web,
Yeah,
can you
yeah. What you
drag from
might have to
there
do,
to
uh,
the
uh, uh,
Photos app? I don't think you
what
can.
you what you might have to do is to drag them from google.photos.com to your local storage, and then drag them into um, the Photos app. So it creates a file first to drag in. Um,
I think when you drag them out, it's going to drag a lower resolution version, though.
oh, it
So
shouldn't
I,
do.
I believe you want to export
Oh dear.
from. We're talking off the cuff here, by the way, but I believe you
We are
want
indeed.
to
We are.
export from Google Photos to your desktop, for example, and then,
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, not drag
I,
it
I
out,
w-
but use the export tools and export full resolution.
Oh yes, indeed, yes, yes. That's what I meant. Not particularly visually selecting images from the web side of Google Photos,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but doing an export. Yes, doing a file export and then dragging that into Photos.app.
That's what's great about the live stream is we can argue live about the best way to do this. Uh,
Brilliant.
but yes, so it turns out that using the share feature from Google Photos allowed you to save
Perfect.
full resolution, all data intact pictures from Google into Apple Photos, and that worked perfectly for them, and they could understand that.
Yeah.
It worked well. It did exactly what they wanted, and they were happy in the end. Now, why the phone store couldn't tell them to do that,
Well,
I don't
that's
know.
it. I mean,
They pretty much
they were
said
the number two tech in the entire county or
in the
whatever it was.
entire
So that's
region, yeah, they
in the
they
region. Yeah,
um
that's a bit shocking.
they didn't even let them know that with Google Photos installed on the phone, anytime they take a picture and it gets saved to Apple Photos, you can have Google Photos automatically upload it as a
You could have
backup.
them on both. Yeah,
You
that's
could
right.
have it
You
on
could
both.
indeed.
No mention of that at all.
It's just one selection tick box away.
Yep. Now, messages and photos, and the Apple Migration Assistant for Android is very hit or miss. I'm going to just say that. When it does work, it
Yeah,
works really well, and it will migrate.
if it does work.
It'll migrate your messages. It'll migrate your photos. It'll migrate contacts and
Yeah,
calendar. It'll
yeah.
migrate everything. But I've had it work maybe once out of every 5 times I've tried it. It is
Oh
just
dear, that's not a good hit rate.
not a very good success rate in my experience. Now, I think part of that is because every time I've tried to do it, I've tried to migrate from an older Android phone to a new iPhone. And I
Ah,
suspect it works best when you're working with a somewhat recent model Android phone and operating system
yes, yes.
and a new iPhone. I think that's when it's going to work the best.
That's
Uh,
it. Yeah, that's one of the big problems in the Android world in general is that you often see very old Android phones that haven't got a hope in hell's chance of getting the latest operating system installed on it. So
that's
you
right.
can't go from a modern version of Android to do a migration to a modern iPhone because it's not capable of upgrading often. And yeah, so hence a much better idea of doing this manually.
Now, I have had luck with a third party tool, and this is what I had to do in the instance where I had an old Android phone and they wanted to keep their messages and they wanted to keep, as much data as possible and migrate it to their new iPhones. I have had luck using a third party tool called Wondershare Doctor Phone, and it's Phone. There
Excellent.
are tons of these apps
There's
out
quite a few
there.
of these. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's
I
difficult to know what to trust, though, isn't it?
it is difficult to know what to trust. I have had decent experiences with other Wondershare apps in the past.
That's good.
It's not necessarily my go-to app developer, but in this particular case, this Wondershare Dr. That's the funny thing is when you search for these types of things, every single one of them looks identical. I think they all just steal from one to the other. That's the
Yes,
impression I get anyway. Or they just copy.
that,
They just say, yeah, I'm going to make
that's what
mine look
Android developers
exactly.
do.
Yeah. But this app runs on the Mac. It's not free, there is a cost for it. It's called Wondershare Dr. Phone. I'm not endorsing it here. I'm just saying this is something that I've used. It allows you to transfer data from one phone to another. And you connect the old phone to your Mac via USB. It will suck in all the data, all the messages, all the photos, everything. It'll suck it all into the Mac. And then you connect once you set up your iPhone and it's operational, and that's key,
Yeah,
it has to be operational and you're signed into it. You connect your iPhone to the Mac and then you push the data over to the iPhone. I only did this with photos and I only did this with messages. Everything else I transferred the way that we discussed. But in the case of messages, this is pretty much the way you need to do it. You need to find some third party app that will allow you to make a manual backup and then push that backup to
Yeah.
your other device. And this particular app worked for me. Again, it's not free, and they do kind of charge on a per device basis. So when you want to do this with new phones in the future, you got to buy another license because your old license only works with the original devices. So
Oh no.
kind of weird in that respect, but it I saw it as a one-time purchase.
Yeah, it's a one-time migration. Yeah.
I want to
I
guess it
don't know if
was around $50, and for the headache it saved me, it was worth the $50,
excellent.
and it worked.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if because there's an app which is rather good for the Mac called iMazing
oh,
for
amazing, yeah.
I don't know if it goes as far as being able to take data from an Android device or not. I know it's really good with iPhone migration and that sort of data migration,
Yeah,
including messages, but I
yeah.
don't know about whether you're able to take data off an Android device using iMazing. But if you could, if that feature was available, then that would be an excellent bit of software to use because it's not something um, alien running on another platform. It's a Mac. It's a Mac app
And so is
um,
this, by the way. This is
by
a
a
Mac
trusted
app too.
developer as well. Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I don't know if that's a thing that iMazing can do.
I don't believe iMazing allows you to back up data from an Android phone. I believe it's only, yes, you can back up your messages. In fact, Ecamm used to put out, we're using Ecamm Live right now. They used to put out an
And
app that allowed you to
oh yes, they had an
uh,
app.
back up uh, contacts and messages and all kinds of stuff. And they stopped developing it, and they now refer people to iMazing. So it's
Yes,
a fantastic app, especially if you want to keep offline backups of your messages and offline backups of just the general, your phone content in general. It's a
mm.
fantastic app for that. But I don't know that it's a great app to transfer from
I, I don't know if it'll even
another
talk to an
platform.
Android device if you plug
Yeah.
one in. It would be good if it could. That might be a good thing to request them to add as a feature.
So let's wrap up with Gary's question. This is a much quicker question. I promise. We'll be done here
Excellent.
in just a couple minutes. Uh, but it's similar. It's similar to what we've been discussing. Gary wrote, I have ongoing issues with my contacts. It's driving me nuts how I get duplicates and for no known reason. And he
uh,
says, some contacts just delete. Now, I don't know about that. The duplicates issue does go back to what you were saying, Darren, about making
yes.
sure that you don't have some errant account enabled on your Mac or your iPhone that might be showing the same or similar contacts to what's in your primary, in this case, iCloud account.
Yeah.
But my general advice here, and I think I'll just kind of leave it at that, but my general advice here is if there are issues syncing, if there are duplicates, etc., uh, go to the source. Go to where you believe your contact should be the most accurate. And in this particular case, since this was an iCloud account, I mean iCloud.com. Go to iCloud.com,
Yeah.
sign in, visit your contacts, and see
Yeah.
how they look.
Yeah.
Do they
Check
look
them on
right?
the web so you don't look at them in the
Yeah.
Contacts app or on any of your devices. You're looking at
Yep.
pure data on the service directly, and technically that should be the truth.
It
If
it
what you see there is correct, then everything else needs to reflect that. So that becomes your truth then. So it sounds like they have more than one set of services or one set of truths that they're syncing to, different devices are syncing to, in which case adding data to one won't be reflected on the other, etc., etc. So that's it. If you discover that your iCloud.com contacts uh, are listed and that they are that's your truth source, then you can test that out by adding a contact on one of your devices that you think is correct. And if it appears on the list that is the truth, then that is correct. And
Yeah.
then you can reflect that on all of your other devices, and then they'll all be in sync. But
Yes. And I like the way you phrase that, Darren. You phrase it as the truth. And I think that's a really good way to say it. In my head, and this is probably just a little nerdy, I always think of it as gold master, right? And that's a very
oh yes, there
nerdy
we go.
term.
The
Uh,
Goldmaster,
but the
the
gold
release
master,
candidate.
the release candidate, I always think of when you're syncing to a cloud service, what is on that cloud service really should be considered the gold master. That is, as you said, the
Yes,
truth. If they're messed up, if your contacts are messed up at iCloud.com, well, you can fix them there. Or
that's it.
you can, enable, well, I would say first disable contacts on your Mac. Disable iCloud
Yeah,
contacts on your
yeah. Turn it
Mac,
all off, and
turn it
then
off,
slowly turn on.
and then when the Mac asks, would you like to delete these? Say yes. Because you're not deleting them from iCloud, you're just deleting them
You just
from
delete a local
the,
copy. So what
the
could go wrong?
local copy.
Yeah, that's
Delete them. Then, once they're deleted, once there are no contacts on your Mac, re enable it,
then resync. Yeah,
resync, and what you should see on your Mac should exactly match what you see at iCloud.com.
yeah. Should be a copy of the truth.
There's no reason that they should be different. And then,
That's right.
as you just said, Darren, uh, merge some. Take two that are duplicates, merge them, and you should see that merge take effect at iCloud.com. Keep both
Yeah,
windows open,
on
and
both
you should
locations, you shall
see
see that reflected. Yes.
that change reflected exactly. So use the awesome tools on the Mac that we talked about to find the dupes, to merge cards, or just delete them. If they're truly a duplicate, just delete it. You don't need it.
Yeah,
Make sure that they're syncing properly over to iCloud.
yeah,
Um, and once you have that working properly, then do the same thing on your phone and your iPad.
yeah,
Turn them off on the phone when it says, do you want to delete them? Say, yep, delete that local cached copy. Make sure they're gone, re enable them, and then they should resync to iCloud. That's the
yeah,
general process.
yeah.
Now,
I think that's the process on most of these services. Actually,
just about any of them. Yeah.
if the first thing you do, apart from doing an export and making a backup, which is an extremely good idea to do as
Good
your
idea.
first
Yeah.
step, is if you can identify um, the source of truth for each service, then that's your first step. Once you've identified where your source of truth is, you can go from there.
Now, of course, if you go to iCloud.com and they look fine, if there aren't any problems, if they're not messed up, if everything there is okay, then you know the problem is definitely local. They
Yes,
could be contacts stored locally on your device. There's the On My Mac contacts, which you mentioned earlier.
that's right.
There's also contacts from other services that could be showing up in there.
Yes,
Gmail, for example. Or your device could just not be syncing correctly, period. There's all different kinds of reasons. But
yeah.
if the truth at iCloud.com, I feel like we're giving a religious seminar here.
Wow.
If the gold master at iCloud.com is correct, but they're not correct on the Mac, then you know where to start investigating and see where the problem might lie. Now, I
Exactly.
know I know it can seem random, but definitely check iCloud.com since that was the case here. We were talking about an iCloud account. Um, but as Darren mentioned just a moment ago, if it's Google, if it's Microsoft, if it's Proton, whatever it might be, obviously check them there instead. Make sure that what you're seeing there is correct, and then you can address the syncing issue back to your Mac.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the nuclear option there, if you find that your gold master, your source of truth on your service is correct and everything looks good, then effectively you could just entirely remove that account from all your devices. and then just when you add them back again, you're synchronizing against that one source of truth, and that will all come back down to the device, and you'll only have you'll fix two birds with one stone then, because if
Right.
you have an account issue with a sync problem, or you have an account issue that's syncing to the wrong service, etc., if you just remove them all and add it again, then you'll only have one, and it will fix both of those problems, because by adding that one service back again, you'll re-enable the syncing, and you'll also be syncing to the one known device, which the one known service that you've decided is your source of truth.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think all is lost here, Gary. I think the issue really is that something is either out of sync or that your gold master, your source of truth, that is iCloud.com, that's where things are messed up. It's one of those two. And once you know it's okay at iCloud.com, you know, maybe it's not a bad idea to do what Darren suggested and just remove your Apple account from the Mac, sign out of it, remove all the local data, re-enable it, and let the syncing start fresh. I think that's probably a really good idea. And then do the same on
There's
your
a
other
bit.
devices. Yeah,
That's it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a bit of a nuclear option, because it's just redoing everything from scratch. But it does not only set up the account again, it'll reset up the sync services and do a synchronize, and it'll do all of that as well. So it should fix everything.
it should fix everything.
But it's a little bit scary, to do, because you think, oh, all my data's gone, but it's not. It's safely up there in the cloud.
It's a little scary to do. And notice that Darren and I both used the famous tech support weasel word, should.
Yeah, should. It
Should.
should work.
It should work. It should work. Well,
Oh dear. In theory.
do you have any favorite tips for um, organizing your cloud accounts? I don't know what I was going to say there. I was trying to make up something and I messed up. Um, if you have any of your own favorite tips for synchronizing cloud accounts or moving from one cloud account to another, you can share your favorite tips in the comments for this week's show notes or drop me a line, mike@formacisonly.com. Hey, Darren, do you have an essential app this week?
Well, no, because you didn't mention it, I didn't think of
That's
looking
fine.
for an essential app. I'm
That's fine.
just wondering if you have one.
I do have one, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And it's an app I just came across this last week or so. I'm not sure when I came across this, very recently. And it's called, I hope I get this name right because it's kind of weird, Rapidmg. Rapidmg, Rapidmg. I guess you could kind of pronounce it
Okay.
Rapid DMG. This is definitely a one-trick pony app, and it's definitely arguable whether it's essential or not. So let's just say that right up front. But if you
Oh,
are
so
the
it's a
type of
one-use
person,
unessential app.
it, it it's perhaps not essential, but it might be
But it's on
useful.
an essential apps list.
But it might be useful. If you are the type of person who finds the process of installing apps from DMGs to be, let's say, a bit monotonous,
Oh,
or
it's-
if you are looking for a way to help a new Mac user in your life with the idea of how DMGs work, then this might be the app for you. Basically, what RapidDMG does is it takes the place of the default opener. In other words, right, when you
yeah,
double click a DMG, it mounts it as a drive on your Mac. It
yeah.
presents the app, and it usually says, "Oh, just drag this over to your applications folder," and it's installed. And then once you do that, what do you have to do? You have to remember to eject
Eject it.
the DMG, throw it away,
But
throw it in the trash,
new
and
Mac users won't know this.
then once you've ejected the DMG, which very often doesn't get done, but once you've ejected it, then what do you do with that DMG file? Well, If you're like me, you keep it, you store it away somewhere just in case you need to reinstall it later, or as apparently Darren does, you delete it, right? You get rid
I
of it.
delete it straight away. Absolutely. Who needs that?
Exactly, exactly. So what Rapidmg does is it kind of steps in for the default opener. The tool that
Okay. Okay.
that typically is what's used to open DMGs on your Mac is the disk image mounter, right?
Yeah, it's just a
The
mounter. Yeah, that's it.
Just the disk image mounter app, and that's the default. Well, Rapidmg steps in for disk image mounter, and when you double click a DMG, you can tell it what you want automatically done. So you double click a DMG, it will mount it, it will recognize the app, it will automatically move it to the applications folder, it will
Even if
eject
you didn't
the
want it there.
DMG, it will eject the DMG, and then
Yes.
it can
Delete it.
also automatically delete it all in one step.
Okay.
So it could be a very useful tool if you don't like that whole process. Personally, I love the process of installing apps on a Mac. Every time I do it, I think about how awful it was to install apps on Windows. So
Yeah.
I get this little thrill every time I open up a DMG, drag an app to the applications folder, eject it, throw it away, or store it away. But I get it. It's kind of a weird process. And if you don't know, you have to eject it. If you don't know, you can throw it away when it's done. Or worse, if you run the app from the DMG every time, uh, yeah, it's not exactly the right way to work. So Rapidmg steps in. It gives you options for how you want to handle things when it's opened. You can tell it not to look for the default app. You can tell it not to delete the DMG when you're done. These are all functions of the app that you can change in its settings. But to be the most efficient with handling DMGs, you can set it up so that you double click a DMG, it opens it, mounts it, I should say it mounts it, opens it, copies the app to the applications folder. And by the way, it can also prompt where you want it to go. Uh,
Oh, that's quite good.
Copies it
Uh,
to the applications folder, ejects the DMG, and throws it away. Super
okay.
simple, super easy, free trial through the Mac App Store. And if you decide that you want to keep it, it's $1.
Okay. That's good.
$1 to
That's pretty
make your
good.
DMG using life easier.
Easier. Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. That's my quick and dirty essential app this week, Darren.
Excellent. Okay. The only thing I worry about for not necessarily worry about, but um, it's good for new Mac users to understand how the Mac is doing things, whereas this might likely mask all of that away, so they won't actually understand what's going on. Whereas I think it's good for a new Mac user to understand what's happening and uh, do it manually, really. But this sounds good, like a good option for us jaded Mac folks that just want to save a bit of time and we know what we're doing anyway, and we just want it done faster. Then that's good. But I think for new Mac users, it might be a bit of a mistake to hide the functionality away because they'll then never understand how the Mac really works. It'll all be just hidden away from them.
I agree. I agree. I am a huge proponent of making sure that when I show someone how to do something, they understand the process and they can replicate that process themselves. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
But even still, I have to admit, I find that several, not all, but several of the new Mac users I've helped through this process of installing apps on their Mac still will forget to eject the DMG, still don't know what to do with it when they're done with it, and in absolute worst case scenarios, um, will run the app from the DMG.
Oh
And
no, that's not fun.
that's not fun either. So that tells me either A, I'm not doing my
Oh dear,
job, or
you're doing it wrong.
yeah, I guess I'm doing it wrong. Now, it's not the case with everyone, and I think sometimes it's just a matter of what we talked about earlier, where it shouldn't be, and it's not necessarily part of their daily computing experience, and so sometimes those experiences don't get committed to memory like they should,
Mm.
and so in that
Well, they
case,
probably don't often install apps themselves,
exactly.
especially as admin, if they're not fully admin users, for instance. So they may not, if they don't do it regularly, then they may not remember. Yeah,
So
that's a
if they
good point.
understand the process, if they get the concept, but it still is one of those things that they forget as time moves on. Having this run in the background might be useful, but I agree. I think in
Yeah,
general,
yeah, yeah.
it's more useful for, what did you say, us jaded old Mac users who don't want to go through the process of mounting,
The extra 3 seconds it
copying.
takes to do.
I mean, it's a whole what whopping 10 seconds, Darren.
I
I don't
know,
have
I
time
know.
for that.
Who has time for that?
In which case, Rapidmg might be the app for you. And I will put a link to the Mac App Store in this week's show notes.
Excellent.
So, with that said, I think that is going to do it for this episode of For Mac Eyes Only. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Remember, we we do. Oh man, I lost
Do we?
my. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I got it. Okay. Remember,
We'll fix it in post. No worries.
we do love to get your letters. So if you have any comments about the show, a tip to share, a software or hardware problem with your Mac, or maybe you have your own tips on how to migrate from one cloud service to another, well, be sure to leave your favorites in the comments of this week's show notes found at formaceyersonly.com, or drop me a line, Mike at formaceyersonly.com. And do be sure to subscribe to the show's YouTube channel at youtube.com/FMEOTV and click the little notification bell so you can find out when we're going live. You can join the chat room and you can catch all the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't make the final cut of the show. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Darren for joining me this episode. Stay subscribed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Trio.
Hey, here we go. Bye, Brian. Thanks.
Oh, excellent. Thanks, Brian.
Talk to you next time. Bye, guys.
Great. Cheers.